Okay, so as I said we were going to do today, we were going to look at the architectural section, and the one that we're going to start building first is the one through the back wall, that is in the same spot as our steel section. So we're going to start from the foundation and go all the way to the parapet. Where the first one that we're going to do has no openings. And I'm going to split this lecture into a couple of videos. I saw the other group had some videos that they were doing as well, so I thought that might be kind of useful for us. And I was going to video it live as we were doing our class, but as you know, I am running short on battery power here. So I'm going to record this and send it to you, and hopefully you can follow my steps. So what I started to do here is that I started to draw the foundation wall. So what I just did is took a sketch here of the foundation wall, and it's really important that when you do sketches by hand, the proportions are relative. The proportions don't have to be exact. The proportions are relative. Some things are a little exaggerated, but you do get those textures in. So we see that the foundation wall here, I've got that nice wall, and I've got my slab, and I've got my textures in. And I suggest that when you draw it by hand, you also use colors as well, and that'll help. And the next, so I've got my foundation wall. This is going to be the base, basically the base plate detail, because under that, it's nothing very exciting is happening. This is the base plate detail, but adding the architectural elements, not just the steel elements. And in fact, you'll see that it's mostly the architectural elements that I'm going to show you right now. Then we've got our slab, and then we've got the gap. And so it's really important that you remember to have this 1/2 inch gap. And that's, I know that you've included it, but make sure that that you have enough space here. And there's a couple of things going on in there, so we want to be able to show them. So we've got our axe line, we've got our foundation wall. Remember, our axis line isn't in the middle of the foundation wall, it's slightly inside the building. This is the inside of the building here. The inside of the building is here. This is the outside in this case. So it's slightly on the inside because, as you'll see, we're going to have our bricks that are going to sit on the foundation wall, but that's why it skews the axis line a little bit towards the inside. So the next thing that we're going to add is that we're going to add all these things. So what else do we have? We have the ground line. So this is the nice ground line here. We've got the ground line, and when you draw it by hand, you can exaggerate that slope. When you do it on the computer, you can sort of even it out. It's only 1 to 2% slope. And then we're going to add, finally, what we didn't add in the section is we're going to add our insulation. So our 1 inch insulation over here. So we're going to add that in, and we're going to add a flooring material over here. So we're going to add, this is a flooring material, and we don't know what it is, but it's usually in commercial buildings such as the vet clinic. We could look it up, but in the sketch, we don't know what it is. In the vet clinic, we can look it up to see what they've used, but it's usually a resilient flooring, and resilient flooring means like vinyl tiles or marmoleum or something like that. It's in houses, it would be wood, maybe even carpet, although that's not very favorable right now. So we've got our insulation down here on the this is an underground, and that insulation is going right up to the top. That's our 1 inch. We're going to add our flooring here on top of our slab. And don't forget to add the reinforcement symbol into your slab here, the 1X. We're going to add a little bit more in terms of the base plate and so on. But first, let's just look at this wall section in terms of its composition, similarly to the wall section we already did in the other direction, but now we're building it in the vertical direction. So we need to put our this is our stud, our metal stud. And the metal stud here is centered in the axe line. And then on the outside of that, we have, of course, our sheathing. It's our sheathing here. And then on the outside of that is our insulation. And remember, this is spray insulation versus blown insulation. This is spray insulation. And really what I noticed is that oftentimes people straighten this line, but you really have to do it curved like this. Not curved, but sort of bumpy, because the bumpy is what distinguishes it really from the rigid insulation down below. We've got our air gap. We've got our bricks. We've got our weeping hole down here, the last brick at the bottom. So the last brick at the bottom down here, that's our weep hole. And then we've got on the inside, we've got our furring, our metal furring over here. This is our furring. And then our gypsum on the inside, our gypsum and our baseboard. And then we'd have to add a couple of important things to this. We've got to add basically our vapor barriers and our flashing. So we need to add on the inside 2 really important vapor barriers. One that stops the moisture from coming from the floor into the slab. So that's this blue line that comes along at the bottom here. And it's going to go inside between this 1/2 inch gap, and it's going to go up. And then if you can, so when in the blow up version of this, you should show a sort of little lines going across here. You see them in yellow, little lines going here across this area, because that would be filled with a sort of a caulking, so that it's not just an air gap. So you've got your blue vapor barrier coming here, and then your vapor barrier, of course, continues over here, this blue line here that continues on the inside behind the furring strip, and that goes up. And then you've got this blue line over here, down here, which is your flashing. So I want you guys to start by drawing this, redrawing this by hand, because we drew the other one. It was sort of hard maybe to understand. I want to make sure that we've got this one down. So I'm going to send you this one, and then we're going to move on to taking our, essentially taking our base plate detail, and we're going to start to add our architectural elements to it. So as you see, I've got it here, and I've got it labeled, and there are also various layers that we're going to add to this. So start by drawing it by hand, and then you can start by adding this on AutoCAD, but I will follow up in the next video.